the oil pressure is forced down this gallery here into your crank here, but also into your camshaft here. And this is what I was saying about that bushing, because I hope you can see it, because I've got too many things in my hands. But there is the little hole here for the transfer. Now if we sort of zoom out a little bit, this is the cam. Oop, wrong end. This is the cam, and this is the passage for the oil. This is your keeper. It's got a little keeper to stop the cam going around, but this is your passage for your oil. So oil can get around this into this gallery here, if you see what I mean. But it's restricted. It's quite restricted, but it is in line. But I am going to check it first. Now, like I said, Turner said it was restricted to keep the oil pressure up. But I'm just going to make sure that my man has got that in the right place. I think he has, because I can feel that hole here. Let me check. Let me double check it before we do anything. So I hope this explains things. This is the principal oil passage, so oil goes this way and this way up to the bearings. But it also goes through the camshaft and ends up here through this hole here. Now, I've put a piece of copper wire in so you could see quite clearly the oil passage. So it goes from the head through that gallery, which goes to your tappets, through here. So oil is now going to go around the camshaft and through there, but at a lower reduced pressure. Well, that's not such a bad thing really, because that gallery will fill up eventually, but it will retain oil pressure in your crank, which is really important. It's a bit of a gamble really, but obviously it was made like that. But I just wanted to make sure that that hole was lining up, which it does. So I think before I put the cam in, I'm going to put the plugs in here, and the same at the back, and I'm going to put a bit of sealer on those and tighten them up, and hopefully that'll be okay. And then we can put the cam in. I'm going to use red Loctite on these. Now this hexagonal plug, this goes on the back, and these parallel plugs here with a little screwdriver slot go in the front of the block down here. Don't get them mixed, well, don't get them mixed up. I don't think you'll get your cover on if you put the hexagonal one on. But all they need is a little bit of, make sure they're nice and clean, and a little ring of Loctite on, and they won't come out. But also, please note that they also have had two little punches on with a centre punch, and I'll show you that in a minute. Here you go, use your dad's old screwdriver, look. Perfect size. Look at that. Tighten them down. See, the parallel threads are not taper, but you don't want them to come out. So that's why we put a bit of Loctite on them, you see. And there's nothing to bottom against. So we do them sort of just under flush, like that. And get a punch and lock them in. And they won't come out. I hope. They won't go anywhere. So the next thing, once we've got that done, we'll put our camshaft in, I do believe. Often overlooked during rebuilds is this little thing here. It's a jet that goes into the oil gallery, which squirts oil onto the back of the vacuum pump, because this is a double cam on here, a double lobe cam on the back of the vac pump. So it gets kind of a lot of abuse. Little 10mm, make sure it's nice and clean, make sure the hole's nice and blow, you know, you can hold it up to the sky and have a look and see if you can get this in without dropping it. And this is why you do this when the sump's off, because it's a bit tricky. And do that. Just wants a little nip. There we go, nothing too much. Now we can put our cam in, because we've got to do all these little things first. I think what we'll do is we'll build up this side today, and then we'll get down to the, you know, the turny bits later. We'll put all the cam followers in and stuff like that. That would be really good, wouldn't it? I'm going to be using this Lucas oil stabiliser as an initial lubricant. Now I'm only doing the journals at the moment. I'm just putting a bit on because it's really sort of thick stuff. But I'm only putting a bit on, and you'll see why. Because what will happen is, as I insert the cam, and you have to do this very carefully, if I put like gallons of oil on it, it would just push off. Like I said, just be super careful when you put this in. Guide it all the time. You don't want to scratch those cam bearings, you know what I mean? Now, just before it does go in, then we give it another good dosing. See on the, you see, oh, what do you see here? You see here where the cam's sticking out, the bushing? I'll give it a good old dose up because it'll have pushed off if you see them. There we go, get some on there, get some on there, get some on there. Don't worry about the cams for now, we can just drop it straight down the hole. And like I said, make sure that's all nice on there, all nicely turned around, look, before we put it in. Can't get to that one very well, but we'll be alright. And there you go, and that comes in. Now I'm just going to pull this cam right to the end. Get a bit more lube onto there. I'm going to crank this engine over and get oil pressure up before we even start it, so don't worry about that, but that is really nice. Ooh. Ooh, that's good. And you see why I'm not so bothered about the lobes, because we can drop oil straight down there onto the top of the lobe, so we're not really super worried about that. But that cam's in. Now we have to fit the retainer. So we're going to be using Will's LR Workshop torque specs for the 300 TDI engine, which is handy because it's got everything there. And these are supposed to be tightened down at 9 Newton meters, not with an air gun. They're only 8mm heads. So I'm just using a quarter drive. That's it. This one doesn't click, but you can feel it. No more. All right? Doesn't seem much, but that's all it is. Next we'll do while we've got our torque thingy out, whatever it's called, we'll tighten up the bung for the water. Naturally it doesn't mention what the bung should be tightened up to, but so I'm just going to use a quarter drive with a 13mm socket on so we don't over tighten it. But we've put I've put a collapsible washer on there, so, rather than a regular copper washer, so it'll take to the shape of the cast iron or the machining whatever behind that nut. You'll have to believe me because it's on this side, but you know which one it is. So that's that on, that's the cam in. Oh, I wish you were here to see that. Next we'll start to put in the followers. Originally when I removed all the parts for the tappets, I keep them all in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I put them all into a plastic bag, and then when they come out with the ultrasonic cleaner, I put them in a brand new bag so they're all nice and clean and ready to go. Now the interesting thing is there's no marks on these whatsoever. They're really, really good. But the thing you've got to watch out for is here. There's a tiny little F just written in there. Now that means that goes to the front. Now I never quite worked out why, but it's kind of important. We're going to make sure that all this surface here is all nice, which they all are. They're all pretty good. And the roller's good. You know, there's no marks on those rollers. Now, some of these cheap aftermarket rollers, they went hexagonal. They were really, really bad. Not worth putting in. So, this is why I said about the cam. I wasn't too bothered about the cam as yet. So I'm going to drop a bit of oil down there. Wait a minute, I'm going to turn this around a bit. Let's get all our bits put back in our bag so we're not falling on the floor. I'm going to turn this engine just a little bit, like that. Ah, that's better. And drop some oil right on top of the cam. That'll eventually go around the cam. We're going to put our tappet holder. It'll only go on one way. There's a big hole at the top, and that's where your oil passage goes through there. And we're going to drop that down inside there. Now don't worry, because that's not a moving part, but these are. So we're going to oil these up. Again, the guides on the sides are going to get oiled up. Same as the roller. Now this is really, really sticky stuff. And I like this stuff because you never know how long an engine's going to be stood. Drop the roller in. Get your brass bit thingy, whatever it's called. Again, lube onto here, on the sides. Now make sure you can see the F. There, just on there, there's a little F. Drop that in, down to the bottom, and then we're going to get cleaned up. Right, the reason why we cleaned it up is because we're going to put a little bit of Loctite on here, because in the old days it used to have a locking wire, but they did away with that and they put a bit of Loctite on it instead. There we go, just a bit. And then, with it all over your fingers, lift up the guide with a pricky thing and insert it so it starts off. And then you're going to tighten it down to 10 Newton meters. No more. You can snap them. Don't go around with a 1/2 inch gun. That's it. No more than that. So I'm going to get on with the rest of them. This is a bit painstaking. So there we go. We've got them all in place now. Now, I didn't put any oil around the outside of these tubes that go down, and there was a couple of reasons. First, it's a static piece. It doesn't move. Secondly, I didn't want to get oil in the threads when I was going to be putting Loctite on. I want to make sure that Loctite is really going to bind, because it doesn't really work very well when there's oil. So that was the reason why. And thirdly, when we fill this car up with oil, this is going to absolutely saturate with oil as we fill it up. So I'm not really bothered about that too much. And again, once we've got the head on, I'll put plenty of oil down these anyway. So don't worry about that, that'll be fine. So that's all nicely tightened up. I think what we'll do next time is we'll put a few things away, a few tools away, and then we'll concentrate on putting the things on the side for this episode. So first of all, we're going to install the vacuum pump. This flange is nice and flat. It's got a bit of paint on, but it doesn't really matter all that much. I'm just going to use blue Hylamar on these paper gaskets because these don't really leak all that much. But the most important thing I want to show you is that you see where the cam is? See, the cam's got 2 lobes on it. I've done this before. You see, there's a lobe there and a lobe there. So what we're going to do is turn the cam so it's horizontal, so it's vertical, sorry. Put the gasket on, and then when we put the pump on, it just drops pretty much straight on. We don't have to fight against any spring pressure. Now again, what you're going to do is tighten these bolts up evenly. There is a bracket to go underneath here later on, but we'll have to take that off. But we're going to torque them down to, what was it now? 25, I think it is. Yeah, 25 Newton meters. So we'll tighten those down to 25 and we'll come on to the next one. So next we're going to fit the fuel pump. We're going to preload all inside here with this sticky oil. I've already done the gasket. Now they should be 25 Newton meters. They are a bit tricky to get started. I think I'll start it with a quarter drive and finish it with a torque wrench. There we go. Now tighten these up evenly. No, a little bit at a time. And then we'll finish that off with a torque wrench and throw the gaskets on the floor. That seems awful tight for her. There we go. The next thing, we'll put the cover on the support here. It does the support for the timing cover. Actually, I called it the support for the timing cover. It's the support for the fuel pump. It's also the crankcase breathing. So that's that done. Next we'll have a go at putting the oil filter housing on. Well, I got space to put my tools. Right, back in the thing. The oil filter gasket only needs a little bit of sealer around where the holes are. It doesn't need it all around here because there's nothing in there. If you see what I mean, there you go, you see, there's nothing there. And this Hylamar will make that gasket nice and soft. We already pre-did this housing. Put the thermostat in and checked that. Put a new O-ring on it, checked all that. So those are 13mm heads, and I'll have to check the torque on those because they're going to be tightened down a bit more. I don't know why. Thinking about it, I should have done this tube first, but it doesn't really matter. Right, back in a bit. So we're going to tighten those down to 33 Newton meters. Nice and even. And then I'm going to go and get an oil filter and just screw it on to protect the threads and protect any dirt getting in there. So again, 25 Newton meters, tighten down the return tube from the rocker box. That's done. So really all that side's done. The oil filter's empty down here. I've just screwed it on just to stop dirt getting in. I will fill the filter up before we turn the engine over. Now I'm going to just find a couple of bungs to put in here to stop any dirt getting in. So I think that'll wrap that up for this side. I've put a lot of plastic bungs in all the holes, anything that's going to be open, even the top tube here, just in case something drops in. Always wise to keep all these plugs, you know, from your radiators and stuff like that, because they all fit together. So the next thing we'll do the other side. And there isn't that much to do on the other side really. Let's have a look. No, not really. Just a couple of pipes really. I could screw them into place, couldn't I? Let's do that and then we'll finish this video. Right, so we're just going to blow through this tube first. Make sure there's no dirt in it. And we'll just put that on sort of finger tight. Like that. This, if you can remember at the beginning, the hose that came out of here, the return hose, was really bad. It was very badly twisted here. So we had to get another one. Where are these made? Turkey! And again, we'll just get it started, because obviously when the turbo's on, it's kind of difficult to get started. So that's what we'll do. We'll call that a day for there. We could put the dipstick tube in, I suppose, but it'll get in our way a little bit. We'll catch you later, and then we'll start to put the crank and the pistons in.